Africa right now. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Advocate Sabelo Sibanda. Please give him a warm welcome.
Bridget, thank you so much. It's an honor, and indeed it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. For us to talk, as Bridget has mentioned, about issues that are happening with our particular focus and interest being Africa. And the reason why our particular focus is Africa is because we are here on the continent, and whatever happens here has a direct impact on us. So our talk for this afternoon is entitled Guns, Grassroots, and Lawctivism. It is a topic that a lot of people interpret in different ways. It is a topic that is very much of time as we speak right now. More especially that I'm talking to young people. I'm talking to the youth of Africa today. I am talking to people who I hope have a vision, have a desire to do something meaningful in as far as Africa is concerned. That your being here at the University of the Western Cape is a sign that you have a desire over and above yourself. Meaning you have a desire to make an impact in as far as the world is concerned. Where we find ourselves can be defined as a Kairos moment, where a Kairos moment from the Greek meant the opportune time, the right time, the time for something to happen because it has to happen. And I believe my being here today is because it is the time and I'm speaking to the right people. People who will be motivated enough to get up and say, I am going to do something about this situation. Bridget has been talking now about Agenda 2030 and what is happening around the world and how African sovereignty is being compromised on a daily basis, how the humanity's sovereignty is being compromised on a daily basis when we look at the international health regulations, when we look at the global pandemic preparedness agreement that is seeking to take away the powers of our governments and our people and give them to unelected representatives somewhere, whom we don't even know, who want to talk about our reality on the ground and pass laws about what we should do and not do, yet they don't have a lived experience of what we are going through. So now, Africa is moving forward. Africa is moving at a pace that basically says, it's either you're in or you'll be left behind. It's either we begin to reimagine reality in a manner that speaks to our Africanness, or we continue to have someone else define our worldview. Through whose lenses are we seeing the world today? Are we seeing the world through our own African lenses, or is it the West that is giving us an appreciation and an understanding of its own reality and therefore expects us to be confined to that reality? Guns, grassroots, and Lawctivism. Let's talk about the word coup. For those who have been keeping up with the news over the past couple of years, particularly from 2022 coming forward and looking at the experiences of Burkina Faso, you're thinking to yourself, possibly that is a coup. Let's interrogate these things together. Let's think around these things together. The word coup from the French coup d'etat means basically an aggressive takeover. And it has been weaponized over the years to mean a takeover which is illegal, a takeover which is illegitimate. And much of the time that illegitimacy being informed by the fact that it's usually the military elites, the generals, the commanders, the guys sitting at the top who actually take over this power and therefore speaks to the illegitimacy and the illegality of this particular situation. As we interrogate, as we go through what is going on in Burkina Faso, what is going on in Niger, in Mali, I want us to look at the interpretation of the word coup as I've explained it through the Western lenses and see if that is the same lens that we need to be interpreting what's going on in those particular countries.
You scoff.
Oh, thank you. So now, when we talk about a coup, let's begin to relanguage some of these things. Let's begin to think clearly about some of these things. Here, I've spoken about an elitist coup. Let's look at a people's coup. The topic, guns, grassroots, and Lawctivism. The people's coup, coup in quotation marks, as a revolutionary tactic. I want you to think to yourself and answer to yourself. Maybe we can even have a conversation about it. When a soldier feels for the people, when a soldier sees the suffering of the masses, when a soldier hears the crying out of the people and identifies with that cry of the people and responds. When a policeman hears the cries of the people, identifies with the people and wants to defend the people. And the people move together with the soldier and the policeman and say, yes, we need a change. And the soldier responds because the soldier is in control of the gun and gets rid of a system that is oppressing the people and moves with the people. Is that a coup? Think about it. Why are soldiers there? Why are the police there? Are they there to defend a system? Are they there to defend the political elites? Or are they there to defend the nation, whereby the nation are the people? So now, when we talk about a people's coup, we are talking about a revolution. We are talking about a rebirth. When we look at Africa from the days of colonialism, and then we look at the 60s coming forward up to 1994 with South Africa being the last country to have a change of face in government, people celebrated. People believe that indeed liberation has come. People believe that indeed independence has come, only to realize that in reality, it was an aborted revolution. It did not change much in as far as the reality is concerned. We got different flags, yes we did. There is no country where the flag remained the same. But is flag independence really what the people wanted? If flag independence is not what the people wanted, it means the real thing still has to come. And what we are seeing now, what we are feeling now, is a situation whereby the African People's Coup is basically bringing up the second revolution, the real revolution, the revolution that says the military man, the military woman, the police, their primary obligation is to the people and not to a system, and not to foreign interests, but saying, if the people have to die, by virtue of the fact that I'm a soldier, I will die before a civilian will die, because I am equipped to protect the civilians. Where the police officer, when they see that people are protesting and the protest is a righteous protest in the sense that it's bringing a change for the community, will protect those people as against criminalizing anything and everything that speaks to protest. The whole idea of the people's coup speaks to the voice of the grassroots. Where is the voice of the grassroots? Where is the voice of the people? Who will speak up for the people? I mentioned earlier the international health regulations. I mentioned the global pandemic preparedness treaty. As we speak right now, Sunday, the 10th of August, governments will be expected to put proposals to the World Health Organization as regards what they want to see as part of the treaty. How many of you have been consulted in this room? How many of you are even aware that this process is going on? Yet, should they get it right in the manner that they want to do it, each and every one of us will be legally bound by those laws that we have not said anything about. Those laws where we've been denied the voice. So now we have a situation where we need the gun, we need the grassroots, we need Lawctivism to speak together and say, enough is enough. We will determine our future in the manner that we see fit. We cannot continue to have someone decide on what is good for us and what is not good for us. We see a situation whereby I've mentioned Burkina Faso, I've mentioned Niger and Mali. Let's talk about Burkina Faso for a while. Let's talk about youthfulness for a while. Back in the 80s, we had Captain Thomas Sankara, president of Burkina Faso. The name Burkina Faso means the land of upright men. It was changed during the times of Thomas Sankara. And one of the things that Sankara did, he came in by way of a so-called coup with the support of the people. Sankara came in and he changed the way in which the system was basically working against the people to work in favor of the people. He was a youthful man. One of the reasons why I want to continually emphasize the youthfulness of what is going on, starting from the days of Sankara right through to where we are now, is because I'm talking to youths. I'm talking to people who maybe could be thinking, I'm too young to do anything. I'll wait until I graduate before I can begin to make an impact. I'll wait until I've had children and they are grown up enough. Then I'll be able to make an impact. I'll be able to say something. I don't know, I hope all of you are aware of the history of the University of the Western Cape. During the days of apartheid, this was one of the places that stood up against the apartheid laws. There were young people here, where you sit right now at the University of the Western Cape, who stood out and said, in the days of our youth, we will proclaim injustice as injustice and we will stand and break the cycle of injustice. Are you prepared today to be one of those who is ready to identify with what is going on in Africa, ready to identify with the young men, women who went out and sacrificed their lives literally sacrifice their lives just so that the likes of us can have an opportunity to speak without fear. We see now Sankara represented at the time the rebirth of the African revolution. But unfortunately, the forces that were at the time cut him down. They sponsored a coup against him. They got his own to kill him so that the system could continue in the same manner that it had done, oppressing the African people. So what we are seeing happening now in the young Captain Traore is yet another rebirth in as far as the hope for Africa is concerned. Yet another attempt, like Sankara, one of the things that he has emphasized is the fact that central to the struggle and central to the advancement of Africa is the protection of the women and the ensuring that women occupy their rightful place within society. We see that General Goita, General Chiani in Mali and Niger, they have also, in as much as they are much older, but they have also come to a point where they have said, enough is enough. Africa has to stand and speak for itself. Traore has basically said, he said this before the United Nations, Africa shall not kneel. We have knelt enough as African people. We have been taken advantage of enough as African people, partly because we have allowed someone else to define our reality for us. We have allowed someone else to shape the direction of what our life should be like. But now we have Captain Traore. And you'll notice that I don't call him President Traore. The reason why I call him Captain Traore is deliberate, because he is the captain of the African People's Revolution. He is now the epitome of what resistance and revolution mean to the global African nation. In him, we see the resistance that is in us, and therefore has to be revived. In us, he sees the future of Africa. That is why when asked about whether he is not fearful about what is going on, about what he is doing, about challenging the West, and asked as to why he is doing this, his basic and simple answer was, it is for the love of the people. The love of the people has to motivate us enough to want to be the change that we would like to see, to want to be the difference that this world wants to see, to want to be the kind of people who will decide as we speak right now that there is no one who is going to mess around with our health, there is no one who is going to mess around with our sovereignty, and we have to come to a point where we even speak to the parliamentarians. Some of you voted, I would like to believe, in the last elections. People are sitting in parliament because of the X that you put next to a particular political party. How is it? How does it happen that now that the World Health Organization is doing what it is doing, it is sidelining parliamentarians? It is sidelining parliament. By sidelining parliament, by sidelining the people that you voted for to be your elected representatives, it means you have also been sidelined. And one of the messages coming from Burkina Faso is that we have to structure the law in a manner that speaks to us. That is where Lawctivism comes in. The word Lawctivism, like Bridget mentioned, the combination of law and activism. I coined the word Lawctivism. The reason why I coined the word Lawctivism is because I'm a lawyer, but I'm also an activist. So being a lawyer and an activist, I started calling myself a Lawctivist. Because Lawctivism, by its nature, is a tool by which to advance an activist cause in the interest and the benefit of the people. A lot of people tend to mistake law and the legal system. Lawctivism has a clear distinction between the legal system and law. Law serves the people. The legal system uses the law to perpetuate unlawfulness against the people. We have to be clear about that. The system is designed against the people as much as the legal system is designed against the people. Whereas law, by its nature, works in support of the people. So now, with Captain Traore, one of the things that has been achieved by what Captain Traore is doing in Burkina Faso is the revival of the Pan-Africanist vision. The revival of the possibility that we as African people can actually begin to live life without any influence from the outside. Without someone telling us how to lead our lives. Without someone taking our resources. How does it work? What sense does it make? You look at a country like Niger. Uranium in Niger. Their uranium is exported to France. France has never known a day of darkness, particularly Paris, with the uranium that they are using to electrify their systems. Yet, you go to Niger today, there are communities who have never known what it is to press a switch and the light comes on. And this is what Traore basically now represents to us. This is what Captain Traore is basically speaking to now and saying, as African people, we cannot continue to be sitting at the table begging to have a seat, being given that seat, and then we continue to beg for food, yet the food is from us. It does not make sense. It does not make any sense. That is why, when you look at the alliance of the Sahel, which is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, the alliance of the Sahel states, one of the first things that all of them did was to put out the French. One of the critical reasons being, this is where now the law also comes in. This is where the Lawctivism element comes in, because Lawctivism basically says we look at the law as it is now and we decide whether that law is actually protecting the people or not. If it's protecting the people and it is not being properly used, we make sure we use it and protect the people. If we look at it and we say this law in actual fact is a tool of the oppression of the people, then we have to get rid of it. And then we look and say there is no law, so we create a law that will protect the people in a particular manner. That is how Lawctivism works. So when Traore got into power, he looked at the laws, and there was a law that basically says that the treasury of Burkina Faso, just like it was with other 13 nations which had been in the past colonized by the French, was controlled from Paris. They could not determine their own budget. They could not, right up to now. And Saudi looked at this and said, we cannot subject ourselves to a law that is keeping us in poverty. Because that law ensured that France benefited at the expense of the people. So they began to revise these international contracts. They began to revise the treaties that were there and said, this treaty cannot work, we don't want it. French forces out. Taking our money into France out. Taking our mineral resources without those resources benefiting our people out. What we need is a true revolution that looks at the ordinary man, woman, and child and says, how do we make the life of this person better? If the revolution does not make your life better, then it's not a revolution. Amazingly, we have a situation. We've seen the Western perception of what a coup is. We've seen our perception of what an African people's coup is. Then come the gatekeepers. Come the protectors of foreign interests in Africa. The regional economic communities. In this particular instance, it was ECOWAS. Immediately there was a change in Burkina Faso. Immediately there was a change in Mali, in Niger. ECOWAS, which is the economic community of the West African states, the equivalent of SADC here, came up and said, we don't recognize you. Gave them threats about sanctions, threats about we will throw you out of the community. To their credit, they didn't wait to be thrown out, they walked out. Because it didn't make sense. How can it be that when the people aligning themselves with the support of the soldier and the policeman rise up and celebrate and say, we are no longer oppressed, but a fellow African comes in and says, go back to the hands of the oppressor? How does that work? So now you find that what then happens is that these countries, also within the context of the African Union, the African Union, which is supposed to be the ultimate authority in the protection of the rights of the people of Africa, advancing the interests of Africa, ensuring that Africa is defended, also sings the song that has been written by the West and says, this is a coup, this is illegal, this is unconstitutional, we cannot accept your full representation and membership within the union. So you begin to ask yourself, if elections are stolen, if elections are rigged, if people kill their own people to stay in power, the African Union is silent. How many times have we seen ever the African Union taking a country to task and saying these elections were stolen and the people do not want you? But here we have the people saying, we want this leadership. And the African Union is saying, no, you can't have this leadership, you need to have another leadership. A leadership that is in keeping with the entities that fund us. Whereas the Alliance of the Sahel states is saying, we don't need to be told by anyone. We will use our own resources to fund ourselves, then we can tell ourselves what we need to tell ourselves. So you find that these three states, amongst the core imperatives of Pan-Africanism is unity. the unity of the African nation, the unity of the African people. Now, they have basically come together and created this unity. They have become a hope for us as Pan-Africanists that yes, indeed, it is possible for Africa to unite, and as long as Africa is united, it is possible for us to benefit from the resources of Africa right across the continent. It's so much easier now for Europe come in as a European Union and deals with a single African country. But we cannot talk as a bloc, we cannot talk as a unit. So I find that the scenario as we stand right now is that you look at what's happening in Kenya, you look at what's happening in Togo, young people are rising up, young people are beginning to challenge the system. They're saying no. When Kenya wanted to pass some finance laws which were keeping the people in poverty, the young people said, no, we cannot have this, we cannot do this. So basically, what I'm saying today to you, what I'm saying to each and every one of us here is that in this Kairos moment, in this time that we are living in right now, in this moment of change, in this moment where things are moving at such a fast pace in Africa, where do you stand? Where do you find yourself? Are you going to be one of those who stands in the way of revolution? If you do, the revolution will sweep you aside. Are you going to be one of those who will be a bystander, waiting and hoping that as soon as things come right, I will find where I basically fit in and run with the benefits of the revolution? Are you one of those who just gets in and all you do is cause confusion? Or are you one of those who will get up today and say, I relate to what Captain Sayore is talking to. I relate to what is happening in Mali. I relate to what is happening in Niger. I relate to the quest for the freedom of Africa and African people. And I will find my space and see how I can make it happen. Whether it's by going onto social media, whether it's by talking to other people like we're talking here today, however which way, distributing literature, educating people to see the possibilities. One of the most important things that we need to begin to address as African people is the desperation of our people and how so many people have given up, the hopelessness of some of our people. I remember one old man saying, when is this independence going to end? Because they don't understand what it means. Are you going to be one of those voices that speaks out and says, I will spell it out. I will create a reading club. Start maybe with Sankara Speaks. Read Sankara, understand what Sankara says. Read Amilcar Cabral, read Frantz Fanon, read Marcus Garvey, and get to have a broader appreciation of what is possible and what is real. This demands of us a unity that we have never seen before. There are so many forces out there that are pushing at ideologies that are aimed at keeping us apart and thinking that we are different and thinking that we have to fight each other and thinking that unless I fight my brother here, I'll never succeed. So I must get rid of him before he gets rid of me. Or unless I get rid of my sister, then I am stuck, I am done. As against looking at each other and saying, I am gifted in this. You are gifted in that. You are gifted in that. How do we bring these strengths together so that we have a solid African nation, so that we have the skills that we need? I was saying to someone, it's impossible to have a team and everyone is a goalkeeper. Can you imagine that? From goalkeeper to the striker, everyone is a goalkeeper. How is that possible? So my brothers and sisters, in rounding off, I will say to you, be the best that you were created to be. Always remember that. Be the best that you were created to be. And always tell yourself, today I am better than yesterday. Not I will be better, I am better. Whatever it is you did yesterday, whether it's your schoolwork, whether it's related to community work, whatever it is, just aim at being a better person each and every day. And that is what we are seeing in Burkina Faso, that is what we are seeing in Mali, that's what we are seeing in Niger. And that is why Captain Traore has become a symbol of the global African people's revolution. What they call a coup in our eyes is a revolution, because it is freeing our people, because it is changing the system, because it is overturning that which they've been using all along to keep us suppressed and seeming like insignificant beings. But we support the global African people's revolution as epitomized right now by Captain Traore in his youth. I hope with you guys, being youth like him, you will go do your research, do your studies, and emulate that youthfulness that is beneficial for us as Africa. Thank you so much.
All right, I just want to thank Sabelo Sibanda for speaking to us. Just a couple of highlights from what we heard him say. The one thing is courage. Courage is not lost on Advocate Sabelo Sibanda. He was one of only 5 of our legal practitioners in the whole country to stand up against what was happening during our lockdowns, the so-called pandemic. Only one of 5 nationally who stood up against the illegalities and the unconstitutionalities that were happening there. 1 out of 5 nationally. So what about the other legal practitioners in the country? So that speaks to courage. The other thing is the people's coup. I really like that definition. We need to rethink what does a coup mean in Africa, and because a lot of people tend to say that what Captain Ibrahim Traore is doing is he's a dictator that overthrows the government, and they just put this out there, and now we have another view of the people's coup. It doesn't necessarily mean that when militants take over a country that it's necessarily for evil. We are seeing that it can be for good, that there is someone in Africa who works that for good. And I'm sure you've heard the urgency in the plea for us to stand up against the evils that are being perpetrated against our continent, and hopefully that will encourage us to apply ourselves and to make our own contributions in what's happening in Africa. So I want to thank you so much, everybody, for staying and for your considerations. I look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday. If you have any questions, please feel free to stick around and speak to Sabelo.
Sorry, just before you leave, one thing I wanted to say is what I've said to you today is part of almost a full lecture. I've got a PDF on it. I will send it through to Bridget at some point so that whoever wants to access that PDF, you can. I'm putting it out there for 77 rands, basically to be able to promote the work and promote the channel. It's part of the fundraising. I've got a channel on YouTube called The People's Lawctivist. So just get onto YouTube, The People's Lawctivist, and you'll find me there. We've got the International Alliance of Lawctivists. That's for people who see themselves within the context of law and activism, who want to be part of the movement. I'll send all the details through to Bridget. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.